You're watching the free version of Silhouette Essentials. For projects and footage, head to BorisFX.com for the premium download.
So here is the second beauty paint shot, and I'll play this through. So it's much brighter. The colors are very saturated, and it's a little bit different because our character's animating, and that means her facial features are animating. She has some deeper wrinkles on her forehead and some blemishes across her face. So I'm looking to see what I can use for this workflow. So I've already got my workflow set up here. I have my extract detail node and my paint color, my paint detail, and the grain composite with the channel set to luminance. So this is my demo tree here. And so I'm going down to look for something. We'll start in the color mode here, and we'll just zoom in a little bit. Maybe I'll just take my gamma down, just darken my viewer. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, well, maybe I could paint out these moles on the neck. But what I found is that the detail layer here, they really show up. And in the paint layer here, they're a little bit orange. If I try to make a paint stroke with the clone tool, when I'm in the color layer, which I think what I would want to do, and then it's gone. If I go to the grain composite, you can see that it's just turned the mole brown. So some shots are just not the right candidates. So I'm just going to undo that and delete my paint stroke here. And I'll look for something else I can do. So I did some experimenting and I found that there wasn't a whole lot in the color layer that I could do, but I could possibly bring down the color on her nose. If I look at the original, it's a little bit red, so I can just try to bring that down. And I've already have some Retouch in here I can use. So we'll go to the paint color node here. I'm selected on my nose track. And I'm just going to take down the red. I'm going to use the color correct brush here, and I have my parameter set to -2. Make my brush pretty big. And I'll just make a paint stroke down the middle of her nose, just reducing that red. I'll click on the paint strokes in the paint history, make sure everything is all set up correctly, and play back the paint. Okay, let's just take a look at the before and the after. So it's very subtle. Let's do a snapshot, and then we'll go to the grain composite and we'll do a compare split screen. And you can see that it's subtle, but the redness is reduced. So that was one area I could do. If I want to try another area, let's go to the detail node here. And let's take a look. So we can experiment with this screen right side of her mouth. If I go to the Retouch here, I did actually track that side of her mouth, and we'll go to the detail node. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to use the clone brush. Click C for clone, make my brush a little bit bigger and softer. I'll just bring down the opacity. And I'll make an offset, maybe a couple strokes here. And then we'll play that back. I'll make sure I have the screen right mouth wrinkles track selected and play back. All right, let's take a look at the before and the after. So it's a lot softer. So that works pretty well, and I could keep going. But I did find that in general, this shot just wasn't the best candidate. The man on the green screen was a little bit better. The tones were a little bit even. And the colors in here are just too bright and saturated. But that's okay. We're going to move on to other techniques to finish the shot. So let's take another look at this shot. The task is to remove the facial blemishes smooth out certain facial imperfections, diminish some wrinkles, and apply some fixes to the teeth as well. For the shot approach, it seemed that the extract detail workflow was not the best tool for the task, but I can still use the detail separation in the paint node window to help with some of the wrinkles. And then I will use traditional clone painting and auto paint for lots of the fixes for isolated facial blemishes. However, for the forehead, chin, and teeth, they will need their own treatment and techniques. And to keep organized, the tasks will be done separately and pre-comped together for the final result. Okay, now I'm going to talk about detail separation in the paint node. I have my demo tree set up here. I'm selected on the paint node here. And down here in the paint window, you can see there's normal, color, and detail. So when you're painting, you can select one of these modes and you're only painting in that mode. There's also different views up here. You can output, input, color layer, which is a hotkey 8. 9 is detail. P is for paint. We don't have any paint yet. And 1 back to output. But just note if you are looking at a view, like if I'm in 8, that you're actually not in painting in color unless you are selected on the color button. So I'm going to try painting in the detail mode. And we'll go to the detail view. I'm going to try to paint out some of these wrinkles next to the mouth. I'm going to zoom in here. And first I want to show you that in my roto node here, I have all the tracks that I need to paint out the blemishes and wrinkles for this shot. I did these ahead of time, and so they're all ready for me when I want to do my auto paints. If I can just select them all and turn on the eyeball. Let's go and expand that a little bit more. Select all and turn everything on. Let's try that again. Off and on. And then I'll zoom out and turn off some of those overlays. And now you can see this is where all my tracking data is. But I'm going to turn all this off because it's distracting. Select all again and turn everything off. Sometimes it's a little bit finicky. Okay, so now let's get this set up. I'm going to click the detail tab here. So we're going to paint in the detail mode, zoom in a little bit. I'm going to make my clone brush at 50% opacity. Maybe a little bit smaller. And make a paint stroke. We'll go down and make sure we have the screen right. Mouth wrinkles. Select for the transform. Select our paint strokes and paint forward. You can see that next to the detail tab in the paint window that is set to 1. And that's good for all the fine details like pores and wrinkles and things like that. So you might ask, why not just paint with a straight clone tool? And I feel like I would have to paint with a lower opacity with the clone tool, and that might just make the image look a little bit fuzzy. I do like this result painting in the detail mode. Okay, let's take a look at the finished paint. So this is the 1 is the output, that is what we just painted, and 2 was the original. So it's a really nice result. Okay, next I'm just going to move on to some of the moles on the neck. I'm going to paint in the normal mode for this. So I'm just going to choose this mole right here. I'm going to go to the first frame. I'm going to go to 100%. I'm going to make a clone stroke. I'm going to try to find an area that looks like it will match. There's kind of some variable shadows in here, so it might be a couple rounds of this. We'll click on our paint strokes here. I'm going to go down and find the tracking data. Gets a little hidden with the window down here. Probably upper right mole. There we go. Got it. Okay, and then we'll just play the strokes through. And you can see it's not quite right, so I can just do another auto paint. Maybe I'll take down the opacity a little bit. I'm going to just keep going until it looks correct. Okay, so we have that one painted out, and then we're going to try a different area here. So I'm looking at this freckle here, and I want to remove it, but it's just too difficult to track. It gets occluded by the lip at times, and so this kind of thing, you just have to actually just hand paint it out. Just zoom out a tiny bit. And when I do really fine paint like this, a small area, I like to turn on the feature where when I paint that my cursor disappears so I can actually see where my paintbrush is and the paint. I'm going to open up the paint preferences here. Just click that button and we're in the paint preferences. I'm going to turn on hide brush outline while painting. Click apply and OK. And now when I make a paint stroke, my cursor will disappear. I'm just going to set this to 100%. It's always good to try to make the first clone paint when you're painting out moles and freckles at 100%, and then you can go back with different opacities. So I make my offset here, and when I start painting, you can see that the cursor, the pink cursor, actually disappears. So you might think this is like, oh, a lot of work, each frame, but this shot is not too many frames, 37 frames. And it's just quicker to do this than to try to find tracking that's nearby that's going to work. I think I'm going to just move up my drag brush up to the top, and I'll use the clone and the drag brush. So I'm going to click the drag, and I'm just going to unlock this real quick and move up this brush. And this one as well. Click lock again, and now I have my favorite brushes at the top, and I can use the hotkeys, Alt 1, 2, 3, and 4. Of course, I can make my brush a little bit smaller as well, but you get the idea. And now let's take a look at the lips here.